So we have a story here that is super serious as a heart attack, and terrifying. So let's go ahead and take a look at the article. Global food prices, this is an NPR, global food prices hit their highest recorded levels last month, driven up by the war. A United Nations agency says the war in Ukraine sent food commodity prices soaring in March to the highest level it has ever recorded. The Food and Agriculture Organization announced on Friday that its FAO, Food Price Index, which tracks monthly changes in the international prices of a basket of commonly traded food commodities, averaged 159.3 points in March. That's up 12.6% from February, which already saw the highest level since the organization began tracking in 1990. It's also 33.6% higher than it was last March. Jesus Christ, that's a huge spike. The FAO says the war, quote, spread shocks through markets for staple grains and vegetable oils. Russia and Ukraine collectively accounted for about 30% of global wheat exports and 20% of maize exports over the last 3 years, the organization said, with conflict-related export disruptions in both countries prompting a surge in global prices of wheat and coarse grain. The FAO cereal price index was 17.1% higher in March than it was in February. Quote, the expected loss of exports from the Black Sea region exacerbated the already tight global availability of wheat, the organization added, with concerns over crop conditions in the United States of America also adding support. World wheat prices rose sharply in March, soaring by 19.7%. So this is, war is bad enough on its own. It's horrendous. This is what one might call an unintended consequence of a war as well, though. So now global food prices are going to skyrocket because a lot of wheat comes from the region where the war is currently ongoing. If you needed another reason to want to immediately get to some sort of diplomatic negotiated settlement, well, here it is. Because this is going to affect everybody. Now, I just saw something earlier today on Twitter. I'm not sure the source, so take it with a grain of salt here, but Lebanon is about to have a total wheat catastrophe because they import most or all of their wheat from Ukraine, and the last shipment that just came in was spoiled because it was wet or something to that effect, or there's a lot of moisture in it, and now they don't have any more planned shipments, and they don't know when they're going to get wheat again. And so, and don't think that, you're insulated because you live in the US or you're insulated because you live in some other, very developed country. These things have a worldwide impact, a worldwide effect. And so, look, it's a matter of necessity. It's a matter of necessity for the innocent civilians who are dying in Ukraine, but it's also a matter of necessity for the world that we have some sort of diplomatic settlement. I mean, look, I think people are underestimating just how close we are to nuclear war. Because when you have what is effectively a proxy war between the U.S. and Russia in Ukraine, and it's a step above and beyond even during the Cold War, those proxy wars. Because in this instance, Russia is actually directly involved against Ukraine. Back then it was more, think about what was going on in South America, for example. We would go in there and try to put in puppet dictators that more would, our corporations could pillage and loot the countries. And so we had friendly dictators in South America, and there'd be some nominal leftist government that takes control, and we'd try to topple them, and the leftist government would have backing from, Russia. And at least in that instance, it was still one step further removed because Russia and or the U.S. weren't directly involved. Here you have the Russian military invading Ukraine. And so you're even perhaps closer than even the height of the Cold War. I mean, I guess the Cuban Missile Crisis was maybe the closest we ever were. But if we knew everything that was going on behind the scenes here, I'm sure we're close to that level of a terrifying thing happening. So you got to settle it for that reason. Then the other thing is, and this isn't just for wheat, this isn't just for food prices, but of course, one of the first things I think of when I read an article like this is how we're not nearly as self-sufficient as we once were now. So there are, of course, to be an honest actor, you have to talk about the potential upsides of globalization as well and lower consumer prices, et cetera, et cetera. But with globalization came a lot of terrible things as well. With liberalizing the markets and free trade, obviously a lot of outsourcing of jobs and the destruction of the working class in the United States and all these places that used to have amazing factories. They were vibrant factory towns and cities, and then they were destroyed and jobs got shipped to Mexico and jobs got shipped to China. And so when you see a story like this, it reminds me of like the semiconductor issue, where we got like almost all of our semiconductors from China and elsewhere. And as soon as COVID hit and the supply chain sort of seized up, we were sitting there and going, well, where the fuck are we going to get our semiconductors from? Like, where are we going to get? We have all these things that we need in order to keep a modern society running, and a lot of it we're so reliant on other countries. And what happens if the other countries totally lock down their economy, and then what? And so there's been some movement in the right direction on that. Like, for example, we have some new factories being created in, I think it was Michigan and Ohio, was it? Including its semiconductors and new electric vehicle plants and stuff like that. But for the love of God, anything we can make here, we should make here. Anything we can grow here, we should grow here. We absolutely need to become more self-reliant with our economy. We should, people scoff at this notion of protectionism as if it's like a dirty word. Why is that a dirty word? Why is protectionism a dirty word? Why is being more self-sufficient and self-reliant a bad thing? What, it's across the board preferable to outsource all the good jobs in this country and build things elsewhere and then ship them in? Well, when you see a pandemic happen and it seizes up the supply line, then everybody realizes, oh shit, maybe there were downsides to doing that. So look, you need a diplomatic settlement, you need negotiation, you need to find a way out of this where we can end the war and try to get back to some semblance of business as usual in terms of the wheat production. But this is going to hit all of us. This is going to hit everybody. And yet again, it's another reason why beyond that, we need to become more self-reliant and find a way to whatever we can make here, we should make here. Whatever we can grow here, we should grow here. And unfortunately, that's really not the way that it's done anymore. And they're going to be reverberating effects the world over as a result of the war. And it's going to hurt. Of course, this hurts. When something like this happens, it hurts the poor the most. Like, they're the ones who will feel the immediate impact. They will bear the brunt of this the most. And it's ugly, man. It's an ugly situation. So global food prices are going to skyrocket. I don't think anybody's immune from that. And buckle up. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.